Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unsealed Spellbook, the League of Legends podcast about Worlds now group stage. I am Damien Shrink, and this is Al DCI Tackle. How are you doing, Al?
Not bad, thank you.
Good,
Doing
good,
well.
good to hear. So we've got through a full round robin in the Worlds stage. Everyone's played everyone. Lots of great games, lots of not so great games, and yeah, plenty to talk about.
There is. And can I just say rest in peace to my pickums?
Oh
But we'll,
yeah. You've placed faith in some people that you know maybe based on playing's performance they might have been okay, but it's not
yeah,
necessarily.
I mean, we're going to go into this towards the end, but
Yeah.
I think that a lot of upsets have happened, as well as a lot of predicted outcomes as well.
Mm.
It's been quite interesting, but only half of it. I think a lot of it has been quite run of the mill.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll go group by group here, and we'll talk about the teams, what's gone on. Starting with Group A, which is a nice, interesting one to talk about. What's some standout games for you, mate?
I mean, it goes without saying that G2 and Suning was probably the
Absolutely,
best game of World so far, I would say.
absolutely. For all the wrong reasons, some in a lot of ways, but also for all
Oh
the
yeah,
right reasons.
it was a cluster of excellent players and misplays at the same time.
Yep,
But
yep.
that's how G2 like to play.
Yeah, that's going to be exactly what I said. That just sounds like any G2 game, to be honest. EU fans are watching that and they're going, I don't see what the big deal is. Why are the casters getting so hype about this? Was it freaking Azale that cast that one? I think.
No, it was, pretty sure it was Captain Flowers.
Oh, it was Flowers, was it? Yeah.
Yeah,
So you got NA caster who's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," and it's like that. Yeah, we don't see that in NA, but in EU, that's kind of how it goes down.
yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Captain Flowers casts. He somehow just pulls out these colloquialisms from
Honest,
nowhere.
uh,
Makes it really interesting.
yeah, he can rhyme, he can talk like so fast. Apparently he does rap god for his warm up. Like
Does he really?
his vocal warm up. There's a video on Twitter if you follow him on Twitter of him doing it. It's insane.
I'm gonna have to check that out actually.
Yeah.
I will check that out later.
But yeah,
But yeah, I've got.
G2
Sorry,
Suning. Yeah, G2 Suning. Let's break it down. Why was it such a good game? What went down?
I've prepared a lot for this game because with it being the most interesting game of the week, I think it's best that we have the most to talk about it. So we're going to go in depth on this one, probably a lot more than any of the other games.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to talk about. We'll start with the draft. So got the draft here, and straight off the bat, you can see that G2 were looking to play some sort of global pressure style play because they're the B1 to TF. First pick TF. The response from Suning was typical LPL R1 Renekton.
Of course.
And the Syndra, which is fine because Syndra is just going to push TF in early. That's the point.
Yeah.
Now, I don't see why you need to pick Renekton here, personally, as Suning. I think Grave Syndra is fine because Nidalee was banned. Lily was banned, both by G2. So straight off the bat, you can just take Graves, which has been like the remaining predominant jungler.
Yeah, that's your last A tier jungler at that point.
Yeah. So you just set the Graves and the Syndra, and then you pretty much have free reign mid.
You already have a mixed damage mid jungle, which is great.
So you're not gonna have to force the enemy to incentivize a particular magic resist or armor style. But no, they go with Renekton, and that results in Graves being given over to G2, B2. I mean, I can only assume that Grabs was looking at this and thinking, okay,
Yeah.
we'll take Graves.
Yeah.
We'll have it.
If you don't want it.
And obviously they know that top Renekton is a thing, so they just draft Volibear into it. We've seen that match up a lot over Worlds, Volibear into Renekton. I think it's just the default, like, it doesn't lose as hard as other. It's a proper weird pick. It doesn't lose as hard as other champions, but does about the same amount when it comes to late game.
I get what you're trying to say there.
Yeah, so like it's not gonna hyper carry late game like a Camille or a Jax.
No.
But it's not gonna get absolutely shafted.
Yeah.
Into the 6th dimension by Renekton.
As most top laners do against, especially after Bork on Renekton.
Well, that's it. Like so many champions hate Bork playing into it, especially Perk. Like there's no point in picking Perk into Renekton unless it's like an all-in. So like we've seen. I think DRX did it as Quinn, I believe. But people like you're comfortable blind picking Renekton for that reason. So yeah, we see Volibear as a default pick into that. And then Lee Sin, everybody.
Lee Sin.
What does it do? Like in this
SOFM's signature champion.
It is. Honestly, the only reason I can even remotely defend it is because it was SOFM. And he actually played quite well on it, admittedly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as a pick, why? Like I don't get it. Like
is it just that next one on the tier list? Like
it shouldn't be though. Like because when you look at what you want to do, so you've got Renekton and Syndra. You obviously want to keep the AP on Syndra, so you don't want to draft an AP jungler like Gragas or an Evelyn.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just incentivize MR, and then Renekton not do anything late. Depending on the situation, Ashe isn't going to do much. She should be able to, but there's a lot of factors to play in. It's always nice to have that singular AP carry.
So we need an AD jungler.
And I was thinking, like, I think Kindred works well.
Okay, yeah.
You have the early push mid, you have decent top lane, and you've got early push bot, which we'll get into the later part of the draft as it finishes up. I think Kindred is fine here. It still does well into like the limited engage that G2 have. Like it's going to be like TF Volibear ult kind of combined to execute tower dives. If Kindred's there, then you just negate that instantly with the Lamb's Respite.
Yeah.
It's like a better disengage than the Lee Sin kick, really, because the Lee Sin kick is circumstantial, whereas the Lamb's Respite is like definite. What I mean by that is you can mitigate an entire team's worth of damage with Lamb's Respite, whereas the Lee Sin kick can only mitigate at least one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is what I'm trying to say by that. So they go with the Lee Sin, and then obviously bot lane's the only thing remaining, so the rest of the bans are funneled into bot lane. G2 recognise that they're probably going to want to go hard bot, like keep pressuring all three lanes. So they start banning out like Thresh. Suning ban Kalista and Twitch. So that's probably recognising that they want to shove pegs on something that concedes pressure and can't scale as well. I mean, he gets the Ezreal ultimately, which I think is
scales fine and doesn't
it's
have
fine.
to lose lane either. Really,
yeah, it's fine for G2.
Yeah.
So they pick the Ashe, and I feel like they pick the Ashe because it's quite handy with the Hawk shot for tracking Graves. It also can effectively track TF. So basically how it works is if you track Graves in the jungle around the time that TF is level 6 onwards, you kind of have an indication on where they're going to perform that 3-man dive that the comp is so good at.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much try and weed out that, and then you know when to push TF in or where to send your jungler. So SOFM should know where he needs to be.
There's a lot of moving parts in that though.
There is, and I'm not saying that validates the Ashe pick.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at all the AD carries that you're going to have to blind into G2, factors like that do come into play. Because I mean, they could pick Ezreal, but again, you're picking Ezreal into a comp that is like you're going forward with it. It's like Renekton, Lee Sin. You're going forward. You don't have much peel. Obviously, Ezreal has self peel, but you kind of just want to take the fight forward and just fight. Get a flank off from Renekton. You have Syndra E. You have Lee Sin kick. You have Nautilus eventually gets picked. You don't really need Ezreal. I think you get more value from another pick. G2 do need Ezreal to be able to self-peel from Renekton, to be able to mitigate Lee Sin kick, because Ezreal can do that very well with the Arcane Shift.
Yep.
And obviously getting away from Nautilus is always handy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As
So-
Doublelift found out, we'll get to that.
We will get to that because that was shocking.
That was bad.
Oh, that was shocking. So yeah, G2 get Ezreal bad. It's standard. Like the champions are going to scale well. Bad is always going to be a playmaker with the Tempered Fate, and then Nautilus is the response. So going from the draft, it is what it is. You can see straight away that Jankos is trying to find out information about Graves and try and stunt the pressure that he can give off early. So he invades Raptors and he gets punished because Syndra has mid-prior. Syndra will always have mid-prior, like before TF has items.
Yeah.
So Syndra's level 6, Lee Sin's level 5. He walks into enemy Raptors, steals the Raptor because Graves is half health, then just gets one shot by Syndra. Like free first blood over to Suning. It's free.
Mid's over.
And that was all that really happened for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So apart from that, G2 are kind of happy because Ezreal's scaling. They haven't done anything with like TF Volibear really. They've done got a couple of picks, but it's when the team fights kick off that things get really interesting. Because like G2 haven't typically got a team fighting comp, but their comp can team fight. It's one of those weird dichotomies.
Yeah.
Where if it's played well, it can team fight purely off the back of Ezreal.
Yeah. Which, like, my experience in watching that game was, holy crap, no other team could do this with these champions. It's just the pilots of these champions that are really driving them to get the full advantage, and they're always performing the correct duty that they need to be performing. Volibear's in the back line, Ezreal's peeled back, TF's peeled back. They're prioritizing the correct carries and targets, and honestly, like, it needed so much coordination for G2.
Yeah, the problem is like the game's going like G2 start to feel pressured because the game is going Sunning's way because of that. The bot lane as it is, obviously I mentioned earlier that Ezreal bad are they're going to concede pressure and they're happy to concede pressure, but whenever you do that, you are like automatically opting into giving the opposing team the first 2 Drakes.
Yeah,
which is what happens. Now a fight breaks out over the 3rd Drake, but it's off the back of Sword Art picking Pex.
Yeah.
So he gets the hook off. I'm pretty sure he gets one shot by the Syndra, blown up. And then from there, the fight kind of devolves into capturing Drake, and it gets stolen by Caps' wildcards.
Yes, which is insane. Yes,
that was actually huge.
Calculated.
Because calculated. that was really big because that was sole point for Suning in the state of the game where they were still really strong.
Yeah, which means that when the soul came up, like, they would have been 5 minutes behind where they were when the soul came up in the actual events that occurred.
Exactly.
And 5 minutes earlier into the game, G2 still weren't winning fights.
You're exactly right, yeah. So going into that, like, you start seeing fights more often now. I think this is G2 not outright panicking, but realizing that they need to do something to take back pressure. So they end up getting a pick on the Syndra near the Baron pit.
Yep.
Really, really good player. But they try and convert that into Baron when 4 members of Suning are still up. At this point, Pex sees a chance to kill SOFM, kill the Lee Sin. So he jumps over Baron pit, he chunks Lee Sin to like 10% health, and then he just gets smacked in the face by the anchor.
Yeah.
Like, Nautilus locks him down, Lee Sin comes back over, Pex is dead. Meanwhile, the rest of the team are on Baron, and Bin walks in as Renekton, ults, and just stands there, takes all 3 of them on, and G2 are forced off of Baron because they don't kill Bin. Bin manages to survive the 1v3, but he shoves them off the Baron. It's like, best case scenario for Suning in that situation.
Mm.
It was a bit of a desperation play, I think, from G2, given the fact that they weren't in a bad position. They were just wary of the fact that they could be in a bad position 5-10 minutes down the line.
Mm.
So again, the same thing happens a few minutes later, where G2 attempts to get the pick on Nautilus onto Soda, and they funnel everything into it. Like Ezreal ult's gone in there, the views of TF ult offensively, Volibear's ulted in, collateral damage is used, like everything's kind of blown in, and they do kill him, and that's it. Like he's dead, and they nearly kill Bin, and then SOFM comes in with a 3-man kick right across the edge of the Dragon Pit, and it just turns the fight immediately. Syndra comes in, Ashe comes in, just wipes them off the map, and they get the Drake. So it ends up as like a 4-for-2. I think maybe the Ezreal gets away. It's a 4-for-2 in Suning's favour. They've extended that strength even further. That G2 are worried about. They're on soul point. Panic starts to set in. So we get a lull state again for a little bit until the next Drake spawns, because that's really the next objective that people are bothered about fighting. So big team fight kicks off, and it's scrappy. We see casualties on both sides, but SOFM and Angel managed to turn it back. So the Lee Sin and the Syndra are able to take the Drake. Graves tries to like get close to it, but he either got chunked out early or died really early on in that last fight, and he was only just coming back from base when the dragon was up. So it's just soul point for Suning off the back. But that was the turning point where like G2 were realizing that they were getting stronger.
Yeah.
Like they were scaling a bit better. The team fights were going a bit more in their favor. But I mean, it would have been worse if they hadn't have stolen that Drake earlier, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they steal the Drake. But they did steal that Drake. But this is the 5th Drake, and Ocean Soul gets taken by Suning, which normally is like a death sentence.
Yeah.
Especially given the facts, and I want to give a big shout out to Bin and SOFM for not losing to Boris. They both bought Spirit Visages, which you would normally think that into like the only AP that are on the side of G2. It's like TF, a little bit of Ezreal, a little bit of Volibear, but it's the passive on Spirit Visage, the 30% extra healing on self.
Yeah.
Both Lee Sin and Renekton benefit from the Ocean Soul.
Right. I wasn't aware that could affect the Dragon Soul.
Yeah. So it's any healing on yourself, even if it is Ocean Soul.
Wow. That's really smart. That's really smart.
So they both picked that, and like they opted, SOFM opted towards a tanky Lee Sin build. I think I like Spirit Visage and Randuin's.
Knight's Vow.
Also, Knight's Vow, sorry.
Yeah, he loves his Knight's Vow on Lee Sin.
Yeah. And that's perfect for Lee Sin. And this is why I mentioned that Lee Sin was keeping up with farm with the Graves up to a certain point before he just starts conceding farm to Angel and Huang Feng. Which is the right thing to do, really, because the champion's not going to do anything late. It's just a kick bot. So if you can provide as much for your team as possible, that's the aim. And this is where things just get really, really, really tense. And it's Elder Drake. Elder Drake comes up. Everyone knows it's the universal signal for a scrap, for a Tilly, for a Donnybrook.
For a Donnybrook.
So the teams gather. We have a little scrap, and
I'd have a scrap.
Yeah, have a scrap.
I'd have a scrap. Yeah.
Syndra gets picked off. Angel's in a bad position. G2 flank on the bot side river, just pick them off, and they're trying to take the 4v5 because they have Ocean Soul. The 4v5 is quite handy, but what I mentioned earlier about having that AP funnel, that you have that one AP champion that will do damage because the other team doesn't incentivize MR. I think Volibear did have a Spirit Visage bearing in mind, but like predominantly they don't have MR. Without that AP damage, all the armor that they've built, Ezreal's Iceborne, for example, other things like that, Graves' True Grit, all gets like massive, like so much more value just off the fact that Syndra's dead. Because the team fight gets even harder for Suning. So that happens, they take the Elder, and then the base throwers start occurring. G2 in typical fashion, they take the Elder convincingly. They wipe off Suning from the map. I think they kill 4 people.
Yep.
And pretty much go to Baron straight away.
Yep.
Run it through top lane, and they're running it into the base. In typical G2 fashion, I think Wunder goes in too deep, and they throw.
It was so annoying. It was so annoying because they were being so patient in that top lane. They were like, yeah, they're waiting for it. They're waiting for the waves. And I'm like, maybe they'll rotate now, go get something else off the map. You know, because obviously they've got plenty of time on these double Uber buffs. Plenty of time. They can take more off the map. You know, they've already shown that they're outscaling. So just having more gold is going to make them even better. And they can also they'll have 2 lanes of minions coming in now and just flood the base, and like it's easy. It's one. They've got long range champs. No, you're right. Wunder overextends, dead, and then in a very classic G2 fashion, the rest of the boys just are like almost like they're tied by a rope to them. They're just like, ugh, and just jerk towards the fight, and all end up dead.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because that fight ended up that way. Like, about 60% of that fight was while Elder buff was still active as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they didn't get any value from it. There was just so much healing from the Ocean Drake. A lot of factors mitigating that 25% threshold that Elder Dragon has. 25%? The threshold that Elder Dragon has. And it results in Suning acing them and then bombing it down mid. Like, let's go. Let's get the boys together and run it. Then the same thing happens.
Wow.
Like, to be fair, I will say, because I watched this fight really carefully, because Suning and G2, like G2 love to throw whenever they've got the base invade. We've seen it multiple times. Fnatic know it all too well.
Oh yeah.
But Suning and as much like that, so that they went in, and I think Wunder was the only person up. And then they were coming in one by one. Graves was up, and they went in. They were eager. They thought they'd won, so they were trying to take the towers. But straight off the bat, I think Tempered Fate came in, and I think it hit Graves. And he ulted the towers. Yeah. He ulted both towers and the Graves. So then the Syndra goes, right, I can use this opportunity to get a free one-shot on Graves. So preps a stun in the ult, and Graves a stopwatch.
Yeah.
Mitigates Syndra ult.
Yeah.
From then, Lee Sin kick goes on to Wunder and hits him into the Nexus and nothing more. Gets no value off the kick. Nautilus ult also goes on Wunder. Wunder does fall, bearing in mind. But you've got Syndra ult down, Nautilus ult down, Lee Sin ult down. Ash's arrow went wide earlier on in the fight.
Yep.
The only ult you've got left is the Renekton ult, which has just been ongoing throughout this. So as soon as G2 are back up, it's just a slow, methodical team fight back.
Perks and Caps are last ones back up. They come from the back and they just lay out the damage.
That's it.
Like you say, there's no answer from Suning because they've already used all their tools, and yeah, the stall from Mickey, from Yankos and from Wunder was amazing. And inevitably it was going to be Caps and Perks that were going to win or lose this game, and they did. You know.
Yeah, I mean, Caps also opted in for like no defensive items, but he gets a rapid fire cannon.
Yep.
And he was a massive difference maker in this, like shoving them off.
It
allowed him to kill the Ashe.
Did you hear the stats from Caps during that game? So his damage per minute on Twisted Fate was nearly 900. He did nearly 900 DPM on Twisted Fate. And you can look
that's a lot.
It's a lot. You can look at the stats on most of the like more damaging supposedly mid laners, and they're not getting close in pro games. It's just not supposed to go down like that. But Caps can pull that out of a champion, like pushing it to the absolute limits.
I mean, that's what he was doing. He, like I said, the build that he opted for was accommodating that. At the same fact that one mistake and he does get one shot by Syndra.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Straight away. Or even Renekton, maybe. But yeah, he went for it and it worked out. The long range gold cards were vital in a lot of these team fights. especially the last one where they managed to pick off the Ash. So
And then
yeah,
just to finish out, cheeky TP.
well, yeah,
Off goes Perks. I'll finish the game.
they already popped the inhib from the initial Baron push earlier on.
Yep.
It was quite a roller coaster, to be fair. I enjoyed watching it.
Oh yeah,
Game. I thought they'd lost. Like, I was tempted to just start looking away as soon as we were running into that base. I'm glad I didn't, but I was tempted to just look away and be like, all right, game's over, it's done.
And your pick'ems would have been truly over at that
True.
point. Yeah.
True. But yeah, so we've talked in depth about this game mainly because
absolutely
it was down as our best game of the group stages so far. So. Mm-hmm. We will move on to some of the other games in the group. Won't talk about as long, but go on, Damien.
All right, so the next one I want to talk about is another G2 game, but I think it's significant. It's G2 versus TL. And the question I want to pose to you, I haven't actually managed to see all the game. I've seen the beginning and the end. I haven't seen the middle. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I have. So what I want to know from your professional opinion is this technically an upset, or should TL have been able to do this all along, or was it just a fluke that TL got this and they're actually trash? just tell me. I just want to know. Just give it to me straight.
So
they could be trash.
With this, I got the vibes really early on in the game that Broxer was pissed off.
Oh yeah.
He was pissed off. They finally gave him the Graves, and it was into Jankos' Nidalee. And he was trying to just jungle Kingdom Nidalee pretty much, as well as he can do in that matchup. We saw little mistakes from Perks and Mickey that resulted in a few early leads going over to TL.
The level 1, Jankos loses his flash, and that's pretty vital.
I mean, he dies, doesn't he?
He may die.
I'm pretty sure he dies. They invade on red side on the red buff.
He definitely uses flash, because I heard an interview with him earlier where he was talking about how that was more important that he didn't have his flash. It wasn't as important that he died. It was more important that he didn't have his flash.
Right. It might have been that they just lost the flash then. But yeah, these early game things that we're getting, early game parts that were getting taken advantage of by TL pretty much. I think he did die on red buff. I'm just looking up now just to make sure, because I was certain that he died. But yeah, it was a Kalista set invade and flashed in, flash face broke it in to get the first blood. So that happened, and from there it was kind of just snowballing. Jensen throughout this was kind of given a free lane, to be honest. It shouldn't have been really because of the Jace pick, but I don't know how accustomed Caps is to Jace personally. I've not seen him play it much, and it kind of felt like just a response pick rather than a thought out pick. The idea was again having that AP centric carry on Nidalee. And then what ended up happening was they needed an AD mid. They couldn't pick this set, I'm guessing, because Core took it. The Core was on set. So you have to think of the other AD mids you can go.
Lucian.
That are viable.
Lucian banned.
Yeah, Lucian was banned. I mean, if you're Knight, you can go Nocturne.
If you're Knight, you can go Nocturne, yeah. If it's play-ins, you can go Tristana. But
true.
In the World's group stage... what are you going to go for?
But yeah, so he opts for the Jace, and I just don't think it does enough to the Orianna. The Orianna range is similar to Jace's. The only thing Jace has on her is the empowered shock blast, which is, if you're behind minions, it's nothing to worry about.
And Jensen's not going to make that mistake.
He shouldn't. He should not make that mistake. So yeah, it just becomes a bit of a farm fest, a bit of a trying to lane Kingdom Caps, to be honest, as best as he can, and picking up kills around the map. So like I said, games go in TL's favour. They're getting early kill in bot lane. Tactical picks up one on Tactical picks up the kill on Italy, and then Jensen picks up a kill in the mid lane. From there, it kind of like devolves into trying to play around objectives, as you would expect.
Yep.
Going for heralds and dragons, but each time Jensen is getting stronger and stronger. Like, he's playing these team fights really well. Throughout the entire lane in Fierce, he was pressuring caps. The CSing was quite even because they're both ranged champions. Even though Jace is AD, he's obviously got the cannon, Mercury cannon, but he's constantly putting pressure on mid so that the rest of the team can do stuff. So even when the Mickey tries to make a play on Alistair, or they try and get a pick off with the Ash arrow, everyone's kind of ready to react to it. So, I mean, as we go on, we see Jensen just get more and more fed.
Yep.
Like, I'm trying to think what he ends. Something like 10-2 or something ridiculous
10
like
and
that.
1, I think, off the top
10
of my
and
head.
1.
He's got I think he has a 25 stack Menchise as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the game.
I'm just it was obviously a masterclass by Jensen and Broxer. I think Broxer played pretty well. People like to flame Broxer recently.
Well, this is what I was talking about, and this is the thing that is scary about Team Liquid, is when that mid jungle duo is working, when they're not blind picking a freaking random mid laner, like, and hoping for the best. When they're securing themselves a good mid jungle synergistic duo with a chance of winning the lane as well, when they get that secured, I think they can be unmatched, honestly, because when they're winning by such great margins. When that works, and
yeah,
you need to sack off Impact a little bit, but if you're gonna put someone on weak side, it's Impact because he's so good at it.
That's what they did this game. I mean, the point of this game again, it was the Renekton and Volibear matchup that we've seen time and time again over Worlds.
Yep.
And it is just a matchup that just sits there and they just hit each other a little bit, a bit of to and fro, a bit of slap and tickle, but you don't see too much action there. It's more about what they offer in terms of dives and in terms of the team fight flanks that they can pull off on them champions, because that's what they're there for. But both of them fit a similar role of facilitating tower dives early and getting like impactful, no pun intended, flanks off during the mid to late game, because they can't do anything. They're not tanks. They both obviously have ults that give them additional health and stats, but I mean, you can tell that Wonder was getting the upper end over Impact for the majority of this lane, as you would expect. But it doesn't matter because like Volibear's not the carry, Orianna's the carry,
and
Callista's the carry, Graves is the carry.
Like you say, the Nidalee is being jungle kingdomed, and you know what that means? That means the weak side police is being policed. Who polices the police? Brox's
exactly
Graves. Brox's
you are
Graves polices the police.
You are right. That's effectively what he did, because it stopped Impact from getting punished so much.
That's the missing piece. So, like, and we joke about the weak side police, but it's a real thing, and it's a real way for junglers to get back into the game. Is like, okay, I've been, my level 1, it's gone. I'm behind, right? How am I going to get back in? Well, they've picked a weak side top laner. We've got really good dive potential. Let's just dive their top lane over and over a couple of times until I'm back in the game, and we'll do that. But if you are policing the weak side police, if you are not letting that jungler do that simply by keeping them far enough behind that they don't feel confident to dive, then, because you don't have to directly intervene either, and just smart pathing and things like that, so there's always the risk that if a dive could happen, like, you make sure as Broxer that you don't show on vision, so that Jankos has to think twice. Nidalee has to go, we could dive top here, the wave's in the right position, but we don't see Graves. If we do, he could turn this whole thing around, or he could even show in another lane and screw us up in another lane where we're also not losing mid but not going too well in mid. You know, we're not losing bot, but we're not going massively well in bot. So like that is just such an important thing. And like Broxer didn't have to play weak side police himself. You know, he just had to police the police. And this is how the meta of this needs to evolve now. The meta of this tournament needs to evolve to there is going to be weak side. It's the nature of the game. It's the way the drafts work out. Someone has to play weak side, but if you can keep that, whoever it's going to be that polices you, because obviously the TF can fill the role of weak side police as well. They can just pop up and kill your weak side top laner as well. So if you're not going to ban that out,
yep.
Then you need to be able to police that by having mid laner with push, or however you decide to do it. Identify where your weak side can be attacked, and then attack what's going to attack your weak side, because that is adding up to be the key thing that changes games.
It's a solid defense. When it's often said offense is the best defense.
Absolutely.
And in this case, it was. I mean, I'm pretty sure the first kills that G2 got ended up being a little fight in the mid lane. It was well played by them, to be honest. It was coordinated. They had the Ash ult coming cross map. Ash wasn't even in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's cross map coordinated with an Alistair knock up. Nidalee was there. Jace was there, and they blew up the Orianna and they blew up the Graves. Mickey played it pretty much to perfection.
Yep.
Problem is they had to set up the perfect circumstances for this. So, and again, top lane wasn't involved at all. Pretty much no impact, no wonder. So G2 at every point in the game, fights like these are how they generate their leads, but they've not been able to take those fights because of what Brox had been doing and the early leads that Jensen and Tactical had both respectively got. It becomes harder to execute them. So it involves sinking 4 people mid and just ARAMing it for a minute. And like I said, it works. They get the kills, but it doesn't really change too much, because at the end of the day, Orianna's still farming up, still beating Jace on farm. Tactical's still got a 40 CS lead or something onto perks, just because the Callista's set is just doing more than the Ashe Alistair.
Yep.
So, and Tactical did play well this game as well. He was utilising the Callista's martial poise and dodging everything.
Always does. He's a great Callista player.
So I think G2 found it quite hard to deal with that. Especially in the team fights. He's bombing about. You've got to try and predict where he's going to go. It's not always easy when you're Jace and you've got Jace and Nidalee both skill shot oriented.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to land them. It's a bit easier for TL to operate the fights. So yeah, it was still TL's bread and butter though. I think that's what we need to remember, that TL's bread and butter is this slow, methodical, choke them out, put them into points where you win fights, and then win the fights.
Exactly.
And that's how they've they've neglected that over the previous games.
Yeah, it's weird because TL, we always think of TL of a scaling composition because they seem to win later into the game, but they're not winning later into the game because they've picked scaling champions, and I think they forgot that. They're winning later into the game because the nature of them winning the game isn't around them directly going toe-to-toe with laners and therefore beating them and then pushing advantages through that. It's by, as you said, methodically deconstructing it, getting a lead in the lanes and maintaining it, and eventually you just choke out the competition. They just run out of ideas. They run out of ways to beat you because you're always ahead of them, but you have to get ahead in the first place.
I mean, that's it. And that was what faltered in the Suning game that they had. I mean, we've spoke about this, and we both were molding about that draft, about Twitch Rakan in first rotation,
absolutely
Syndra Blanc pick. It was just an absolute drop in the ball. I don't know how you can justify Syndra Twitch Rakan first rotation when you there's so many things on the table.
When Graves is available, which Broxer he probably has the highest win rate. With play-ins, he probably has the best win rate on Graves at Worlds.
Well, he did.
Yeah, well, he did, yeah.
obviously a few more Graves players coming out the woodwork, but
Mm.
yeah, so that was on the table. Like, I wish I knew the reasoning that they had to secure. They had to secure Syndra. Like they needed Syndra
Couldn't afford
above
to
all
play the
else.
game with Orianna up as well, which we've seen Jensen smash on. Orianna's up, but no, Syndra, we have to have it first pick.
We need to have it.
I assume it's because Syndra's quite hard to punish with the bans that they had on the table already. Although
It's probably one of the most probably one of the most oppressive mids that's out right now. I mean, I don't really like to count Lucian because he's like permabanned.
He wasn't in this game.
Was he not banned this game?
No.
No, you're having me on.
No, he wasn't banned. TL didn't ban him. TL banned Camille, Renekton, Ashe, and Suning ban Shen, Ornn, and come on, brain, TF. Yeah, you're flabbergasted. I'm flabbergasted.
I am. I mean, is that just a champ pool issue then? Because it is worth noting that Suning didn't pick it up either.
So,
I know why, but carry on.
Here's a theory I'm going to throw out. All right, Jensen, I don't think plays Lucian. I don't think he can play it good enough. So I think they concede it, thinking we'll take Syndra. They're going to take Lucian because it's up. They're not going to think it through. They're just going to take Lucian because it's up, and they obviously don't take that bait, and this whole draft goes to shit from there. But yeah, the Lucian's up.
Honestly, I'm looking back at the draft now, and I'm thinking that if they were flexible enough, they could have pulled off some big brain masterclass stuff. So if we're looking at the draft, right, we see Syndra first, and then the response is Nidalee Galio.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, they picked Twitch Rakan for some ungodly reason. I don't know. Like,
bizarre.
You're picking like a super weak, super scaling bot lane into a champion that can tower dive and like pretty easily with the Galio ult, and you have no idea what they're playing bot. But no hints whatsoever. I think Ashe was banned.
Yeah.
Ashe was banned. You're not going against Ashe. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Thank God he's not playing Ashe. If they were willing to switch it up, right, and hear me out, so the Rakan don't matter. You can even keep the Rakan if you wanted, but you pick the Lucian instead of the Twitch, and you just put a tactical mid, and Jensen plays Syndra bot.
Yeah.
Because you've got the pick into Galio, then Lucian just absolutely eats Galio for dinner. Like, he's not even playable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it'd have been so free. Even if he's not like used to mid lane, like, I appreciate that some players obviously just like you're a bot lane player and you're a mid lane player for those reasons. But we've seen stuff like this before, like G2, for example. I mean, yeah, Pex was a mid lane, admittedly, previously, but the flexibility to do that, I think, would have been huge and would have been like a massive big brain player for TL.
Yeah.
If they just tear on and said tactical defense taking Lucian mid and I'll go Syndra bot.
Yeah.
Like,
well, do you know what? There's probably a wider discussion to be had here, and maybe we'll get to this in a future podcast at some point. But this is a fundamental issue with NA, and this is true across all the NA teams, with the exception of one or two random players and random picks at times. But NA is set in its ways, and they're not doing things like G2 is, where they swap in perks and caps. They're not like they put it on social media. Oh yeah, caps is going down bot because perks is a bit bored of it. You know, that's the meme answer. But the true answer is that they're adding more bullets onto their what's that called?
Bandolier.
Bandolier. Yeah, they're putting more bullets in their bandolier. You know, and whether they're actually going to need it, like whether that's going to pay off at any point, whether there will be a similar swap for G2 later in the competition, remains to be seen. And whether we think that's necessary, because top esports aren't doing it, Damwon Gaming aren't doing it, Although I do think for Damwon there's a definite shared champ pool there between Showmaker and Nuggery, which is like amazing.
Yeah, we will touch on that soon.
Yeah. We're going to finish this point up and then we're going to move on to some more groups. But yeah, NA fundamentally is not thinking in that way. And for all the excuses that they have as to why their region's weak, that's all they are, is excuses. And I am an NA apologist, and I you know, it is my favourite league, but goddamn, they're dumb. They're dumb.
So I quickly just want to give a few minutes attention to Matchy in Group A. So obviously Matchy are in the same position as TL.
Yep.
Being the ones to take the game off TL. Now, do you think that Matchy conceivably win against TL in the second round? Or do you think that coming off the back of the G2 win, TL might have realised what they need to do?
I honestly think that Matchy, I mean, they kind of kingdomed them in their first game, so they hadn't.
Mission was on a mission.
Mission was on a mission, yeah. But they hadn't figured out in game one. But have they had time to figure out this new version of TL? And is this new version of TL going to stick? I can see that being the case. I can see TL. They're so quick to learn, and they've got some of the best staff going. Well, I said that can't get into that discussion either about staff and whether they're actually useful or not. But in theory, you've got Jat as head coach. He's seen it all. Kane and Dodo have been around for years. Like they don't often make the same mistake twice.
But they make the mistakes in the first place. That's the problem.
They do make the mistakes in the first place, yeah. And this is true for all of NA, that because the level of competition in their own league is not nearly as high as these international teams that they're coming up against. As soon as they get here, they fall over their own feet first before they start falling over anyone else's.
That's true.
So they've fallen over their own feet now. All right, TSM more so than the other two, but they will learn. And into this second round robin, I do feel confident about TL and all of NA. So no, I don't think Matchy beats TL in this second round robin.
Okay. So, again, I think Matchy have actually played pretty well. I think Mission's actually held his own against the likes of Jensen, Caps, and Angel. And Gemini's not done too bad in the jungle as well. Like, I'm pretty sure he, kingdomed Proxer as well.
Yeah, he did.
But I think one significant thing I do want to touch on is the fact that Matchy obviously won their first game against TL at the start of Worlds. And have lost since. Yeah. Whereas TL have the opposite, where they lost the first two games, and they're just coming off the back of beating G2.
Matchy. TL.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Well, but we've got to ask: is it like that, or is it like that?
Yeah, they're going to meet in the middle somewhere.
Are they going to meet in the middle? But yeah, so I don't want to spend too much more time on Group A, so I will move on to Group B. But before we do, standout players, Group A.
Group A.
What have you got?
Right. So for me, I picked a Sunin player, and I picked Bin. I know we haven't spoken much about top lane and the impact it's had, but I think quietly Bin has been a little bit of a hero for Suning. He's always performing his job. He's 18 years old, so he turned 18 just before World started, and he's been phenomenal. He's not. This is obviously his first international competition. This has been his first pro split. As far as rookies go, this is as much of a rookie as you can get, and he's just really cool-headed, mechanically gifted, making the odd mistake here and there. But we always knew that Bin was going to be the one that potentially could make those mistakes, but he's not making the same mistake twice, which is all you can ask of a pro player. And yeah, I think he's doing really well. He's doing great.
Quick fun fact for you there, mate. Yeah. Bin actually had the most recorded solo kills in LPL for the summer split.
There you go.
Yeah, so bearing in mind this is a league with the likes of
the Shy.
Why have I just gone real thingy. Gimgoon, the Shy, Khan's in there at the start of the season. 369.
Yep.
Langji. There's a lot of big names in the top lane. For some reason, I was thinking, I was like, loads of LCK top laners came into Bin, and I was like, that's not right.
Am I right in also thinking though that Bin also has the most solo deaths in the top lane?
He might do.
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah,
he might do. Probably not. I would have to double check that, but he definitely has the most solo kills.
Yeah.
And this is like you said, he's a rookie. He's fresh and he's coming in and he's topping a stat like that. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Likewise, I'm my player of the group. Again, is a Suning player, but I'm actually giving it to SOFM. Mainly because obviously we've seen him for 3 games now. And in 2 of those games, he Flame Horizoned the opposing jungler. He Flame Horizon Broxer and he Flame Horizon Gemini. Like, it wasn't even close. This man, he generates camps whenever he wants. There's no timer when this man's on the Rift. Like, I don't know how he does it, but he does it. and he makes these plays that can really, really bolster Angel and Bin to do what they want. Another thing is that even when he's on a jungler that's not as hard power clearing as the opposition, like when he was playing Lee Sin into Graves, he was keeping up with Graves, like beating him at times throughout the series, and he recognizes his role in the team. So like I praised him earlier on for like his choice of going tank Lee Sin, because he recognizes that he isn't going to be one-shotting Ezreal on the backline because Ezreal has Iceborne. He's not going to be one-shotting TF on the backline because gold card's a thing, and because I'm guessing he went Rota Rod of Ages, so he's a bit tanky in that regard as well. So you just like get rid of any sort of narrative that Lee Sin's going to do damage and just try and support your team as best as he can. Not everyone recognizes that. Like, you know, it'd take about 500 Black Cleavers before we see that in NA. So
the cursed item.
Exactly.
We don't speak of that item.
I laugh at NA, but loads of regions do it. China does it. Like they'll go listen and they'll build Cleaver when it's not optimal or not necessary, rather than just going towards what Lee Sin actually fulfills as part of that comp. So based on that judgment and his performance, like I said, Flame Horizon, if you're not aware, is getting over 100 creep score over your lane opponent, or in this case, jungle opponent.
Yep.
So if you're looking at the jungle CS differentials, 100 in a lane is a lot, but 100 in a jungle is a lot more.
A lot, yeah. Your enemy jungle has to be almost non-existent for that to happen.
Exactly.
Which isn't just coming about passively when SOFM's in the game. That's active. Like, he's actively making your jungler non-existent. So we've talked about a couple of standout players in that group. I think we're going to move on now to 2 groups that we can tie up pretty quick, right? B and D. So these are the groups. Group B being Damwon, JDG, Rogue, and PSG. Group D being Top Esports, DRX, FlyQuest, and Unicorns of Love. Pretty much, I've put on a couple of ACCAs this week, and I didn't get any of those predictions wrong in those groups whatsoever. Pretty much only TSM let me down. But like, I don't know. Are these 2 groups? Are they just foregone conclusion? Is Damwon just the best team in group B? Is Top Esports are these 2 teams just destined to meet each other in a final, and there's anything anyone can do about it?
In a word, yeah. So if I stand at Group B, Damwon have put on like an absolute masterclass in typical Damwon fashion as well. Like we're seeing Showmaker and Nuguri being enabled to their fullest, and the thing as well to point out about Nuguri is the fact that you just don't know what he's going to pick. Like when we talk about top lane meta, like we've mentioned a few times the Renekton and Volibear matchup. We've mentioned a few other options that we've seen in the top lane, but it's predominantly champs like that. And then we see Damwon and Nuguri is just like, yeah, I'll play Kennen. Yeah. All right, I mean, you've played Kennen before. It's an
Yeah,
LCK classic.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it works. No one else is doing it, but you can because you're Nuguri.
Yeah.
And he plays it into Lulu, which that was it Rogue?
Yes. No.
No, when it was PSG. Sorry, Sanabi.
Yeah, PSG, that's right.
Sanabi on Lulu. And he just destroys team fights with this Kennen. Like, I remember the Dragon fight. He's coming in, gets the flank, 3-man, slicing Maelstrom.
Yeah.
The Syndra cleans up. Showmaker's obviously very adept on Syndra. Like, it's just so free. Like, you can't ban him out. You can try your best, because if you go like typical top lane bans, you'll go, oh yeah, we'll get rid of Renekton. Renekton's strong. Camille's strong. He played that in game 1. We'll get rid of that. What else have we got? You list it long enough.
Yeah.
That one could ban for them, and I don't think they'd get enough chance.
Because he'll just start playing. Well, apparently he'll play a support champ up there, or he'll play a mid lane champ up there, or he'll play whatever he needs to play. And again, like, going back to like we discussed with SOFM, this is about fulfilling a role as well in the team. It's not necessarily about Nuguri winning lane. He's known from back in the days of Klepto Call. He's known for seeding a lane, just for the duration of the laning phase, knowing that when it comes to team fights, he will just dismantle you, and in whatever form that takes, whether that is a more supportive form like the Lulu, or whether that is in a more direct form like the Kennen, he just knows that when it gets to that team fight time, that's where he really shines, and that's where he's going to step up and put you all in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few people talk about Lulu top as like a really viable thing right now, just because of how potent it can be into some of the meta top laners. Like, I've always been a massive believer that Lulu's kit is overloaded so much.
There's
like,
a lot.
You have a slow, you have a shield, you have a speed up, you have a hard CC, you have a knock up, you have health gain. Like, that is a lot for one champion. Even when we're talking about these ridiculous champions that Riot are bringing out right now, like, Lulu's not new, but she still has all that in her kit, and it is about facilitating someone else. And on a team like Damwon, you can afford to put Nuguri on a champion like this, knowing that he's capable of playing it. Like, another important thing to weigh in is that, like, we can say whatever we want about Lulu top and say it's viable and whatnot, but you've got to be able to play it. And that's the difference, really. That Nuguri's champ pool just puts him like a level above the other tops in that league. Like, even Zoom is a legend in the LPL. Like, he just comes in and lane kingdoms you, regardless of who you are. It doesn't matter what team you're on. He's just a really consistently good top, and even he's struggling against Nuguri.
Yeah,
like, his Camille rolled him over pretty much. So when it comes to Group B, I again rip Pick'ems, but yeah, that one's gonna 6-0. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I think that one 6-0 this group.
We can't argue with that. Just to round out, a couple of nice moments we saw from Rogue. Although, it could be argued that yes, they had a good first 15 minutes against Damwon, but Damwon was always going to win that game. You can argue that. It's still nice that they did what they could do in that first 15 minutes. And I think the one thing about Rogue is that they're always at their ceiling. They can move their ceiling, though, it seems. They can move it sometimes, but when they get to the stage, they play at their ceiling that they have at the time. And this is a team that, they've I'm pretty sure they were all fresh to Rogue within a couple of seasons of being picked up, so this is a relatively fresh roster. And they're building the synergy, they're building the teamwork, they're building all these parts, and like, you could see them down the line just getting better and better. And so, I do feel positive for Rogue, and it's really unfortunate that they're in Group B. I think I said to you earlier that if we were to replace them with any of the other EU teams in Group A or C, then potentially they do better. Potentially they have a completely different look.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I really liked the point you just made there about Rogue playing at the ceiling, because they are like, I can't really turn around and say Rogue have played bad into
Not
Damwon
really.
or
Not really.
JDG, and they just demolished PSG. Like
Yeah.
they just absolutely demolished them, dismantled them. But the problem is their ceiling is just not high enough, and
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean it's unfortunate, but also you mentioned that they can move the ceiling. If they can continue to do that over the next season, maybe we see him back at Worlds next year. Maybe when, like, people often highlight Finn as the weak link. If he's got a bit more experience, he expands his champ pool a bit and starts like figuring out more ways to deal with top laners who are just better than him, and he works on his like playing weak side and neutralizing that pressure. I think we can see a Rogue that's a lot more dominant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But as it stands now, JDG goes without saying that Kanavi's playing out of his mind still. Like I said, Yagao Zoe, like, just calm down, mate. Like, don't give Yagao Zoe, please. He does things on that champ that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
He's played some really good games on that champion, especially the one that he played the other day. I want to say that was against Rogue. I believe it was. Yeah, it was. It was against Rogue.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, because it was when Rogue drafted Blitzcrank.
I missed that
one. But yeah, they just couldn't deal with it. Same with Damwon. Rogue did put up a fight in the early game, but Damwon knew what they were doing. It was a ticking clock. Their team scaled a lot better. They picked the GP. Rogue picked the GP. Nuguri just plays Lulu top. Makes it quite a difficult lane for GP. So, although you're trying to give Finn a safe pick, it's pretty good, and it is. Like, Nuguri didn't really care what you play.
No, he doesn't.
I think he'd have picked Lulu. I think as soon as someone said, "You want to play Lulu at top?" he's like, "Yeah." It didn't really matter what Finn was going to play.
Just like I obviously I don't know how this sounds in Korean or how banter goes in Korean, but you can just imagine showmakers there just like, I don't need to pick Lulu, and Nuguri's like, fucking watch this.
So. Yeah, and again, I'm just going to touch on PSG. They're 0-3. Like, I kind of predicted this based off like the group, and I did think that maybe they take a game off Rogue, but
probably still could.
Rogue absolutely destroyed them in the first game, so I don't know if that's going to affect. Because PSG are probably going into that thinking, let's be optimistic, boys. We might beat Rogue. That's optimism at this point, because Damwon and JD are just so far above.
See, so this was the group as well where we talked about the way that the schedule works out. PSG have to play Damwon on their first game of the second round robin, which they're going to lose. They just are. So even then, going later into their game, their last game being against Rogue, so they're probably lost against JDG at this point as well. So they're 0-5. They got nothing to play for. Rogue also has nothing to play for, so we could have a pretty fun game there.
Have a Clown Fiesta or two. It depends. I suppose there is a slight chance for Rogue upset.
Yeah,
JDG or Damwon, but
if Rogue managed to take that game off JDG, then Rogue are going super serious into that PSG game, and PSG,
which is good for them,
don't care. So Rogue should win it, which is a shame, because we'd like to it'd be nice to see that PSG could get a win out of that group, but the only realistic one you could get is off Rogue, but they're already 0-5 at that point, so do they even try?
So, standout players for some of these teams.
We covered it. It's Nuguri. Yeah. It's just Damwon. Damwon are all living gods. I thoroughly believe that. They walk among us. So yeah, that's.
I do quickly, just before we move on to Group D, I do just quickly want to touch on that. I think in the last Unsealed Spellbook podcast, I mentioned that if Rogue were going to win, their win con was most likely playing through Hans Sammer. They've actually done that pretty well.
They have, yeah.
Hans Sammer has on the games where they look good early into Damien and JG. Hans Sammer looked capable. Like he was getting pressure. He was doing stuff with the kills. It is just the gap there. That's the problem. Like it's the team gap.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but to be fair to them, they recognise that, and he has had some good games, Hans Sammer. So I don't think he should be walking away from Worlds. If he does walk away from Worlds with his head held low, I don't think another team should.
Absolutely.
It was a rough group. Same with PSG. Like they've had a lot to deal with over Worlds, what with the temporary substitutes and whatnot.
Rogue.
But yeah, go. Yeah.
Rogue especially shouldn't have their heads held low because they're now got blonde hair dye in it, so they'll get that all messed up. So that'll.
Yeah, that was something. Maybe that's affected it. Maybe it's like mess with the mental.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. It was clearly some kind of quarantine team bonding exercise, you know. Oh look, we've all died. They're all on webcams, like, look what I've done, you know. Like the only things they could get in quarantine is like food, vital things that they need to live, plus bleach. Like that's clearly all they could get in quarantine. Yeah.
Right. So
Group
moving
D.
on to Group D.
Saving the best for last, obviously, but Group D now.
Yep. So same story. SSDD. Top esports are going to 6-0 this group, I imagine.
Without doubt.
DRX are the only team I think that have come close to beating them. The DRX top was relatively close, but it was one of those situations where like top won a team fight and just converted it into a win. Like DRX were winning certain parts of the map. Like I'm pretty sure that was where they drafted the Quinn, the Quinn top that Doran tried to mitigate 369 on. Tried to deal with him. I'm guessing he was on Renekton because that's typically the matchup you see, Quinn into Renekton.
Yes, which I remember the cast for that, and LS and Atlas were casting it, and they said, actually, in our experience, that quite often goes the way of the Renekton.
It does. And also, Renekton had the LS buff.
Absolutely. He picked up the Boris buff.
So, nevertheless, though, it was an interesting game to see DRX try and pull off. But unfortunately, it just wasn't good enough. Will it be good enough? Maybe. If they sort out some of the issues with the drafting. Like, to be fair, in that game, Deft was looking off. Like, they drafted the Draven for Deft into Jackie Love Senna. And he was getting pushed under. Like, that lane shouldn't go down like that.
It doesn't work like that. I don't know if you've seen a pro game before, but it's not how it's not in the script anyway. But Jackie Love doesn't read the script, clearly. He just says, nah, I'm going to improv this one.
Honestly, Jackie Love's Senna is monstrous. Like, what that guy does on that champion, he doesn't make it look like a scaling pick. He makes it look like an early game 1v9 pick. Like, that's what Draven's supposed to be. Draven's supposed to be like the early game. We're going to press you. We're going to push you out the lane. And it was Draven Thresh. So there's that pressure. And then it was Senna time Kench. So that was kind of top esports conceding bot lane and just saying, right, okay, you can have your Draven, you can have your Thresh. We'll just sit and scale with Senna. And
we'll play the game later.
That's it, yeah. And what happened? Senna just ends up like dominating the bot lane. Like, mental.
Yeah.
Knight sat on Nocturne mid, which to be fair, it's a very smart pick because into TF, like, if you look at how the pick and bans went, it was very much they saw that they didn't draft mid lane in the first rotation, so the second lot of bans for DRX went in mid lane, but it didn't really matter because like you're never going to ban Nocturne. So all they did was waste 2 bans that could have been used on support. They didn't ban the Time Kench. They banned the Gallia, they banned the Oriana. So Knight picks out the Nocturne mid. And I think he always was going to pick out the Nocturne mid because of how well it does into TF.
Yeah.
Like,
Plus, they needed AD in the mid lane to round out the comp a bit.
They did, yeah. They drafted like Nidalee first pick, so again we're going towards that single AP carry. You don't want to try and mix 2 AP, 2 AD because it incentivizes, like I said, MR. But so he picks a Nocturne, and obviously that all gets a lot of value, especially into like a DRX team comp of auto attackers with Draven, Quinn, and TF. Like auto attackers in Nocturnal is not fun. It's not fun.
No.
So yeah, I think like top won the draft, but they ended up winning the draft even harder just because of how Jackal played that bot lane.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Quinn got enough value against the Renekton.
No. Certainly didn't win the lane anyway. Which you have to do to be relevant later on in the game. Especially as you say with the scaling center going off, the Nocturne just completely mitigating the Twisted Fate. Potentially, if that Nocturne pick hadn't come out, and the TF was able to get up top whenever he wanted, then that changes the game completely. But having that Nocturne pocket pick, they've showed it now, so they're not going to get away with it in second rotation. So we have to say that that's not going to happen in this second round robin. But with them being,
but then again, does it need to?
No, like, they're top esports. They'll have another pick. There's always another pick.
So I mean, yeah, it just comes down to the top esports just have like an expert in almost every role. Like it is just a clusterfuck of legends.
Is that the sequel to League of Legends? Clusterfuck of Legends.
That's it. That's the sequel. You heard it here first. League of Legends 2. But then again, like I said, the RX have the potential. If they're able to sort out drafting, and if everyone plays on their A game, if we see Deft, if we see PureShake and Chovy all show up, it's not like impossible that they take a game off top and end up going for a tiebreaker. It's unlikely. I would say something like 70-30, maybe 75-25 at this point. But it is possible.
Inevitably, though, what happens in this group is that DRX and top are the two to move on. Because despite FlyQuest having maybe some sparks of brilliance here and there, even Unicorns of Love, I believe, in their game against top, they had some sparks there. We're like, okay,
it's a life, definitely.
They're ready to fight for this, you know. Then they're not just going to go. They won't go quietly into the night, you know. But yeah, realistically, when we came into this, and again, this is where your pick'ems are a little bit baffling. But FlyQuest were realistically the only people who could maybe take a game off maybe the RX. But FlyQuest, pretty much, it seems like, with the exception of Power of Evil, are underperforming. DRX are overperforming, at least against the other two teams in the group. Even against top esports, actually, they're overperforming. It's just an overperforming DRX is still not as good as a performing top esports. So, like, the FlyQuest do just inevitably peter out. I'm looking at their lineup for Sunday, the 11th of October. They play DRX first, which that's a match they've got to win to even think about progressing. So that's a high pressure game for FlyQuest. Not necessarily a team I'd associate with performing well under pressure.
No, we saw that in the finals.
Yeah, that's right. You know, TSM got into their comfort zone there of Game 5's Zillion.
I mean, I think we can talk about this group in terms of important games. This very first game is probably the most important one for Fly, because if they win, like, they've already beaten UOL, I don't think they can beat top. But if they can pick up against DRX and they can get a pick up on UOL, they can force a tiebreaker.
Yep.
Potentially. But if they lose that, the rest of the games are pretty irrelevant until the last game, because we can just kind of assume that top beats UOL and DRX beats UOL, top beats Fly, and it just ends up the final DRX versus top rematch. And that's basically going to be the fight for first place.
Yeah.
So it's going to result in the two teams facing off to try and get first seed. So why it's so important for this group is that by Sunday, all the other group seeds will have been decided. So the top two teams will have gone through on A, B, and C. So the guys in Group D, the teams know full well who they'll be potentially up against in the first elimination bracket, which I think can influence a decision. Now, I'm not insinuating that teams will throw games by any means.
Absolutely not.
but if you can see like a reason that coming second in a group might technically benefit you more than coming first in a group, you might be more inclined to maybe not win a certain game. Or vice versa. You might pull out everything you can to try and win that game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you don't want to be that second seed that's going to make it more difficult for you to get through.
Yep.
I mean, like, I'm sure DRX don't want to face down one. Round one.
DRX do not want to face down one, so if they are in that tiebreaker situation with Top Esports, that you're going to see the hardest try from DRX to beat Top Esports you've ever seen. I think, obviously, in the grand scheme of an esports tournament, it still comes down to if DRX and Top Esports are in a tiebreaker situation. If DRX wants to win Worlds, they have to beat Top Esports at some point. So it might as well be now, so you know you can beat them again later. I think that kind of mentality is probably more important. But you do get teams and coaches that are trying to completely big brain, trying to game the game. You know, they're trying to play things that aren't playable. And yeah, it is a small factor, but I can see how it can come into a factor. I actually think this Sunday, I think this is a good group to end the second round robin on, because I'm looking at the games, and the more I look at it, I think, okay, so let's suppose FlyQuest do beat DRX. All right, they're laughing. They're like, okay, there's a chance here. Unicorns Love then play Top Esports. They probably int that game and throw it away because they're like, it's Top Esports. We'll just let them top the group, right? Got nothing to lose from losing that. But then Unicorns Love play DRX after that. So in a scenario where FlyQuest have beat DRX, Unicorns of Love are now incentivized to beat DRX, despite being 0-4, because that could then make for a more interesting group. I think Unicorns of Love as well are one of those teams that won't just stop playing because they're out.
I agree.
I think they're here to get the most of it out of it that they can, and also probably want to do a favour to Power of Evil if they can, who is a name that you now associate with Unicorns of Love, and it's probably good for their brand that happens. So they probably want to do him a bit of a favour, and they're like, okay, we're going to try hard against DRX. Let's suppose Unicorns of Love play spoiler and pick up a win there as well. Then you get into this realistic situation where FlyQuest has that tiebreaker with DRX, and they've already beaten them once on that day. I don't know. I think it's a low percentage play, but you've got to start going for those when you're at this point.
Well, yeah, that's like last chance saloon for FlyQuest. So if that does happen, it'll be an interesting day. It'll bring a lot more meaning to the games. So obviously, if DRX will win that first game, the rest of the games don't really matter up until the last one. If we assume they play out exactly how we would expect. But yeah, standout player demo.
Standout player. Okay, I'm gonna say it because I think you're going nowhere near this. Power of Evil.
I knew you were gonna say it.
I like Power of Evil. I do just think he's a good player. I think he's wasted in NA. I genuinely just think ship him off to EU where he can put his skills to good use. But yeah, he is the only player on that team that wants to win everything. He wants to win his lane. He wants to take small advantages in everything he does. He wants an extra camp. He wants an extra blue buff. He wants this. He wants that. He'll take it. He wants one more kill. He's just relentless, and it's a shame. Again, I think I could say the same for FlyQuest that we did for Rogue, which is that if you drop FlyQuest in place of TL or TSM in Group A or C, they'd probably do a bit better, right?
I mean, it's hard to do worse.
I'm right. We're getting there.
Sorry, Dave.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay. It's fine. But yeah, FlyQuest. I'm not necessarily hot on them as an org. I love them in their sort of mannerisms, the way they present themselves as an org. I think that's really important. They have
T-Quest, WellQuest, such.
Yeah, great brand, great image. Complete 180 from how FlyQuest have been in the past. And Power of Evil. If you're talking about MVP, if a team has a most valuable player, it's hard to pick one on top esports because everyone's great. DRX, it has to be Chovy, obviously, because he is the team. Unicorns of Love, I don't know, picking an MVP there, probably No Man's and Anasik. Just someone who's been around a long time. But if you're going to pick an MVP for FlyQuest, it has to be Power of Evil. He's the most valuable player. You could prove it in gold if you want. Like it's just quantifiable that Power of Evil is the most valuable player on that team.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree when you put it like that, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, with Man, like, I didn't so much put it as like the most valuable player on the team, but more of like who really demonstrated their abilities over the last 3 days. I did give it to Jackie Love purely because of there are so many reasons I could give it to so many players, but I just want to point out that this man got like 48% damage share on Senna in a game. 48% of the team's damage was on Senna on a team where you have 369, Karsa, and Knight. Like, you don't do that by having your usual passive Senna lane. Like,
picking up souls here and there, you know.
That's it. Like, he's amazing on that champion, and it's pretty much all he's played, really. And we know he can play more because we've seen it. Like, that man's a world champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think he's really enabled on the top squad. And to be fair, I think Senna as a champion has just buffed him, really, because he's so used to playing that like weak side bot lane that now he can do it and still carry from it.
Yeah, true. You're right.
Even when he doesn't have to, like. But yeah, Group C.
Group C.
We'll do Group C and we'll wrap it up.
Absolutely. This is the one with lots to talk about. Sadly, not so much to talk about when it comes to TSM. I'll get it out of the way. I'm gonna rip the band-aid off now. I'm wearing the jersey. It's quite clear. I've been disappointed by these games. There is a road back for TSM. I've done the maths. Let me just bring up my note here. Here's how the games are going to go, because I'm diehard.
Everyone, get ready. Get ready.
So, you ready for predictions? In my crystal ball,
ready.
I see TSM beat Fnatic. Okay. Gen G beat LGD. That's because I think LGD are bad. We'll get onto that. TSM then beat Gen G because Ruler's ear infection gets worse. Fnatic then beat LGD. LGD are still bad. TSM then beat LGD because they're crushed. Okay. Then Gen G beat Fnatic. So that's how those games play out, which leaves the final scores on TSM 3-3, Fnatic 3-3, Gen G 4-2, and LGD 2-4. Now, if you were at the start of the competition and you hadn't seen TSM lose to all three teams, you would believe that this is a scoreline that this group could end on. Right? Fresh off the back of play-ins, you'd go, yeah, I could see LGD going 2-4 in that group. Yeah, I could see Gen G going 4-2 in that group. Yeah, I could see TSM and Fnatic both going 3-3. Right? It can still happen, and it's not less likely because TSM lost 3 games already. It's more likely because you've put them in their comfort zone now. All right. When it comes to we're about to lose, that's when TSM turn it on. All right. And so I'm doing. Look at me gesturing. I haven't done this.
You are into this.
I haven't done it through the whole thing.
You are speaking from the heart.
Oh, I'm preaching it. But yes, it can be done. And if there is an NA team, especially, that are going to turn it on when the chips are down, it's TSM. So we'll find out 9 o'clock Saturday morning, because if they lose to Fnatic, it's doomed. But which is the first game, which is just horrifying, absolutely horrifying. I'll be at work as well, so I won't even get to see it live.
I won't tell you. I
want no spoilers. But yeah, I'm so hoping that on my lunch break I get to watch that game and I get to find out. Well, by that time they would have played freaking Gen G as well. Like that day is really doomed for me.
I tell you what I will do actually.
Mm-hmm.
I will send you a link to the TSM Fnatic VOD.
Okay.
So that you can just, rather than go on YouTube and
scroll through and see.
risk any spoilers, you can just click the link and you can just watch it.
You're a real pal. You're a real pal.
I'll preserve it for you.
We're friends like you, mate.
And then in 40 minutes, I'll send you a laughing and crying fit.
You think they'll last 40 minutes? That's very generous.
Draft. 10 minutes draft.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'll have some draft time. Yeah, okay. That's all that needs to be said about TSM, okay? I think...
I want you to talk about LGD now, because you brought up a hot take in your little prediction just now.
Don't like them. LGD. I think... I don't understand how LGD wins games. I think that's what is bugging me, right? Especially because they beat TSM. Now, they beat TSM because they put all their eggs in the Bjergsen basket, but then made no attempt to build a nest for those eggs, right? So they go, yes, we're picking the LeBlanc. Bjergsen's going to carry. He's sick on this champ, which normally he is, but today, well, when they played, not so much.
I mean, they kind of doomed him to permadeath because you're picking LeBlanc and they have a Nautil or something in your team. So it's just like, right, well, I'm just going to press R on LeBlanc and doesn't matter how mobile she is. You've got a point and click ult coming your way. So
absolutely. So they wanted Bjerg to carry, and Bjerg probably said that day, "Is like, look, we need a win today, boys. I'm going to do it for you." That's probably how that played out. So they wanted their fearless leader to step up and to lead them to a victory, but that's just not always enough. It's not just enough to have the heart. But LGD won that game, I think, because, and this is going to be actually my pick for player of Group C, ironically, because I'm so anti-LGD. But Xie is the reason why LGD win games. That it just purely Xie decides that they want to win, that they're ready to win that game, or that in fact, actually no, we won't completely piss away our leads. I'm going to actually win this game. That decision is completely made by Xie. Because Peanut, sometimes he's doing all right. Most of the time, he's whatever. He's a non-factor. Lungxing, I think, is very beatable. And their bot lane as well. Kramer, I think Doublelift killed Kramer in the 2v2. I think they actually were winning that 2v2 in the bot lane until some jungle intervention came down and put him behind, which is really frustrating because you see that glimmer of, he's actually better than them. You know, he's winning. They can win this. Bifrost and Doublelift can beat Kramer and Mark, and then then Shie does a roam, or like Shie again. It's Shie. He just decides he wants to win the game, and they win the game, which I don't think is fair, and that's why I don't like LGD.
I don't want to. The last thing I want to do is piss on your bonfire demo. I really don't. But Doublelift did die level 1.
He did die level 1. Yeah, you're
right. I'm sorry,
but they were winning the lane.
The problem it was, and it wasn't really performance. It was draft. It was like picking Ezreal into center. Like you're just kind of handshaking bot lane. Like you're saying that okay, we'll both just play these champions and we'll see who does better late game. Which is fine, but you're enabling center, which arguably is slightly better than Ezreal in the late game, depending on like things like stacks and the champions around you. So like you can get a lot of value off the center role in a team with Nautilus and Renekton and Lilia, because these champs they do damage. Well, not so much Nautilus, but they do damage, but also get innately tanky. So extra shields are really beneficial, especially against Burst Mage like LeBlanc. So any sort of healing and shields is like worst case scenario for a LeBlanc who just wants to 100 to 0 you and like in and out. And I think that was like, again, the Orianna pick as well, like it provides a shield. Like there was a lot of damage mitigation. Like I think there was a point late in the game where Bjergsen got on to Kramer and nearly one-shot him. And I say nearly one-shot him because it just didn't happen. Like,
yes, you're right. He finally found the flank, and there was the Orianna shield, there was a bit of healing, there was this, there was that, and you're right. It just was not enough for him to completely blow him up. Which I think even if he had, the team fight still goes in favor of LGD in that case.
Yeah, I mean,
TSM were very behind at that point.
Yeah, I think it did fall apart a bit in the draft, and in my opinion anyway, I think that the Shen into Renekton's fine if you're going to play through like a tactic where you have like LeBlanc diving with Shen shield on top or something like that, but the Shen didn't really get a great deal of value. Like I think Broken Blade TP'd away in like TP'd out of danger twice during that game.
Yeah.
Like there was 2 times where he was in a bad position and he had to TP out or die. The second one was quite funny, to be fair, against the Lilia, but still, it's just not doing what it needs to do, I think.
Yeah.
I agree with your point on GA. I think GA has been the backbone of LGD. Like, he's pulled a lot of stuff out of his Orianna ball that that's resulted in victories for LGD. Do I think TSM can beat them? On the right day, yeah. I think that they have to sort something out. I hope they had a good chat today. I hope they use their day off to have a nice chat.
I don't understand what's going on with TSM, right? Sorry, I keep going back to them. Fuck. I can't quit them. I just can't quit them. But all 3 games they've played against Gen G, Fnatic, and LGD, I can't remember them actually having a gold lead. They had an ever so slight gold lead against LGD for a few seconds. Like, despite the level 1 kill on Doublelift, they managed to then play the map smart and get the gold back. But they managed to throw that. Whereas in Fnatic and Gen G, I don't think there was actually a point where they had a significant gold lead on either of them. And they're always playing the game from behind. And it always feels like TSM are getting pulled to where they should be, rather than pushing themselves to where they should be. And I think that's the key thing. And because they've got good hands, it looks competitive. It looks like, Bjergsen and Broken Blade have just managed to, dive this guy top, or Speaker's managed to catch that spear on that guy, and they've managed to blow him up. But it doesn't mean anything because they're still not playing the map correctly. And again, it goes back to NA fundamentals of the whole region not understanding where to put pressure on the map, or the timings of how each comp works. So if you were to look at the timings of, because I think they're not looking at what the enemy's comp should do. They look at what their own comp should do, and they figure that out quite well. But then they don't look at their opponent's comp and go, actually, this means that their jungler is going to want to do this, and they're going to be at that point in there, which then offers you 2 points, right? Like you say, we can either respond to that directly, put on jungle pressure, bring our mid laner, whatever, or we can respond to it indirectly and play cross map. And I think invariably NA generally end up making no play. Like, they don't match the play, they don't make a cross map play, they just kind of let it happen, which to me says they're just not aware that it was going to happen.
Potentially, yeah. I'd like to see some really flare up for TSM, because we mentioned last week that this group should be the most exciting one.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like the top, like Fnatic, Gen G, and LGD are all 2-1, so there is still a lot to play for. Like, there's no meaningless games in that group.
Yeah.
But it would have been just a bit more fun to see TSM up there as well.
Yeah.
However, I think touching on Fnatic, I think that they've played pretty well, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really impressed with how fast they realised the monumental mistake by Gen G to, for some reason, have life opt into Spellbook Rakan with Ignite Exhaust and just not run Flash.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one, but yeah, goes for the extra combat summoner to make the level 1 play, right?
Yeah.
That's the theory. That's the theory.
I saw that, and I was like, okay. I mean, I've seen that done by Xander, if you remember, back in the day.
Okay, yeah.
He used to do that on Rakan back when Rakan first came out.
Right.
Double combat summon with Spellbook. And it was quite funny, actually. It worked to a degree.
Yeah.
But it did not work against Taylor Sang and Reckless, and I can't think why you would want to do that, because if you think about any bot lane in this group, who's more likely to take a level 1 fight? It's Reckless and Taylor Sang.
Yeah.
Like, 100% of the time. Like, the amount of times I see them trade level 1, like, hard. And it was just a matter of, like, Leona, you've got Leona starting Q, just bonk. It's on a 6-second cooldown at level 1. Well, throughout all the levels. So, Rakan engages in, bonked on the head. Reckless starts doing his thing, just starts autoing him down. He's on the center, so he's got Glacial as well. Constantly slowing the Rakan. Long enough for them 6 seconds to tick down. Leona just bonks him again and they get first blood.
Yep, no flash,
He's got
no escape
no
mechanism.
Flash. Yeah, he's got nothing. It's
the
level
W
1.
cooldown is longer.
Yep, it was ridiculous. And then straight away they go for the dive on like the Ezreal and the Rakan. I think they trade 1 because they get the TP out of BDD. And what that ends up doing is they hard stun Ezreal, like big star. Like he's not enjoying his lane. Rakan's massively behind. Reckless is fed, and Nemesis has free reign over mid because BDD had to teleport. So just recognizing that and punishing that to such an extent, Selfmade knew to go down there and just hit him again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that was really smart play and really good to recognize, like, so early in the game. You know, you won't play the game that day. You've come into it, you've been hit with this, and you're like, oh, okay. Absolutely. And they just targeted it like straight away. So, and then they played the rest of the game out just as well. I actually would give player of the group to Reckless, to be honest, because I just think he's been like massively consistent. You're
right, and for Fnatic, if there is one consistent player on Fnatic, it is Reckless.
Absolutely.
I do think there is only one consistent player on Fnatic. But no, you're right. Although Hylissang, Bwipo, Selfmade, Nemesis, all of them probably have higher highs, Reckless is still pretty high and stays there.
Yeah,
So
and that's it.
I do
That's the
think that's
difference
fair.
maker, really. I think Whipper actually handled the weak side police fairly well.
He
I
he
mean,
can do it if he's in the mood to do it. But then
he got dove.
sometimes
I think he got dove twice, but he's getting dove, and he's on, and they're layering CC on him, and they're sending 4 people for him. And it's like at that point, it's not the weak side police. It's just it's a dive. Like you can't really prevent that unless you just
the weak
concede
side
so much.
army. That is.
It is. It's the weak side army. Weak side Homeland Security coming in, and yeah, you can't even say he's getting punished because ultimately on just outscales and don't really matter. Like, if
He's
he's got
just
an
there to
evening
give you
lane,
free
he
gold
doesn't
later.
care.
He's just
Yeah,
there
he
to give
doesn't
you free
care,
gold later.
and a free engage. But like, so yeah, I think the Fnatic played that series against Gingy really well. The only game they lost against LGD, surprise, surprise, off the back of Gia.
Yeah.
Like, and to be fair, I'm Peanut. Like, Peanut got like a massive ult. Whippo had his carrying pants on that game. Like, he was on the set and he was really trying.
He did, but I think it was a little bit misjudged. That was the only thing I want to say about the set pick. I've made a note about it here. It just the theory was right. You pick the set into the Ornn to hard win the lane, and he did get the CS lead that you'd expect. He did manage to get an early kill, I believe, as well. So Bwipo's looking like he's got his carrying pants on, but it was almost like he then had lit a beacon above his head to say, by the way, guys, I'm looking to carry this one. And like you say, Shea and Peanut then go, I don't think so, actually. We're not going to let that one.
I specifically remember one fight where, like, and to be fair, this is LGD playing it really well. So I think he ults Mark onto Kramer, and obviously you get some percent damage from the showstopper onto the Misfortune, and then he face breakers Misfortune, punches into, at this point MF's on like 1 HP, and he charges the Haymaker to finish it off, and Peanut's there with the Lamb's Respite.
Yep.
And at that point, Whippo's like, shit, because he's used everything. Like,
and he hasn't got the carry.
Set players will know that once you've used your EW and ult,
run away.
You've either got to run or you've got to stand there punching.
Yeah.
And Kramer recognised this and just started firing bullet time off into the centre of the team fight because he knew Set had no 6C left. He was in the Lamb's Respite, so he wasn't dying. And he had Mark and Peanut around him to kill Whipper. Now, admittedly, he did die after Lamb's Respite ended, but that ult in general, like, without the MF ult, LGD don't win the team fight, which means without the Kindred ult, they don't win. Like, Whippo gets a lot of value. He probably took some damage on the bullet time, so he might not have necessarily died against Kindred and against Peanut and Mark. So a lot of that changes if Peanut does not hit that R button. So it was good team fighting in the LGD game, and then GA's Echo just demolished the backline. Like the last team fight, Syndra just got deleted. Like, bye. Jin was running as fast as he could, but it don't matter because she is the Echo. He's just going to chase you down, and then ult. But he didn't even ult in that last team fight.
Yeah,
just all off the back of EQ and Pro Belt. But yeah, so I do think I'm looking forward to seeing Fnatic play because I think that they conceivably can beat any team and lose to any team, depending on certain circumstances. I don't actually think Fnatic have been that bad in regards to like misplays. Like I think that was LGD just playing better rather than Fnatic misplaying too much. But either way, like I still got Genji to top the group. I think Genji would not have lost the game against Fnatic if they didn't try this weird Rakan strat, because that did actually it caused a lot of problems for a lot of players in that team, and it just gave Fnatic that extra like head start.
Yeah.
Genji did start to pull it back a tiny bit. They did, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So if they hadn't have given that lead away in the first place, does that game just fall in favour of Genji naturally?
Who knows?
And we've seen them look dominant against TSM and LGD as well. Like I had Genji to top the group. I still do. I still think they will.
Well, speaking of, let's just quickly revisit these pick'ems that we have here.
Do we have to? Do we have to?
We don't necessarily have to. I'm going to bring in some new tech into the podcast right now, where I'm now going to my pick'ems. So, as you can see on your screen now, this is my set of pick'ems. Looking kind of okay for me in Group A. I have G2 at the top there, followed by Team Liquid, then Suning, Machi at the bottom. Still a little bit to play for. TL and Machi are tied, but we're looking as though we are going to get... there's a glimmer of hope there, but possibly it's only going to be G2 Suning that make it through there. Now, I think your Group A is identical to mine, if I'm correct.
It is indeed.
I will just, for the benefit of anyone watching on Twitter, I will just bring that up. Sorry, my tech isn't completely perfect, so I'd have to switch away and switch back. Here is DCI Tackles pick'ems there for Group A. So yeah, can confirm identical to mine. Slight difference in Group B. So in your Group B pick'ems, you had JDG to top the group, and Rogue and PSG we have in the same positions there.
Yeah, I thought the Kanavi factor might have been enough to edge a win, and to be honest, like I still don't think it's impossible for JD to take a game off Dan one, but I wish I could change that now. Like I'm pretty sure Dan 1-6 out that group.
Yeah. Doesn't look like they're stopping anytime soon. Moving on to my pick'ems for Group C. I had Fnatic to top the group, followed by TSM in second, Genji in third, and LGD in fourth. Which I just briefly revisited my dream scenario for TSM. Doesn't actually require Genji to beat Fnatic in the last game. Fnatic can beat Genji in that last game. It just means that they top the group. And in fact, according to my pick'ems, that would be preferable, because TSM then win the tiebreaker against Genji, and that all works out perfect. Completely flawless predictions there. So
yeah, man, not too dissimilar. No, I'm joking.
No, your Group C pick'ems are way different to mine. Having Genji to top the group, very real possibility.
I think that will still happen, to be honest, but
it could do. It absolutely could do, but only in my scenario now. What can't happen is Fnatic can't come last. If TSM are going to come second, Fnatic can't come last. That the maths just doesn't work out for that.
Yeah.
So, or maybe it does, but that would then mean that LGD has I'd have to redo the maths completely, and anybody.
I was going to say, is there a chance that there's a tiebreaker between?
There is a
LGD
chance because LGD, Fnatic, and Genji are all on the exact same points. If TSM 3-0, then TSM can theoretically have a tiebreaker with any other team that goes 1 and 2. So, yeah, I think this does require one of the teams to go 0 and 3 though, and LGD lose.
No, that would mean that they're out.
Yes, yeah. So they'd have to be one team go 0 and 3, so lose all 3 games.
So for me, it would have to be Fnatic and then LGD.
Yeah, you'd
get
need
the tiebreaker with TSM.
Yeah, you'd need Fnatic to lose all 3 games. You'd need TSM to win all 3 games. You then need LGD to lose 2 games and win 1. So they win their game against Fnatic, but they lose to Genji and TSM.
Not difficult. Easy.
You think that? Yeah. I mean, I believe it can happen. I have to believe it can happen, because my merch says so. So while we're on your pick'em still, we'll look at your Group D. Top esports to top. DRX to come second, Unicorns of Love to come third, FlyQuest to come fourth. It absolutely could still work out this way, but we did look at the strength of schedule for those days.
Yeah, I think if we're factoring in, it depends on how Unicorns of Love do on them first games, but the likelihood is they're against top first. They go 0-4. It depends on whether they want to take a few, like try and take the fight all the way to the end. I think they will.
Yeah,
Unicorns of Love don't strike me as a team that's just going to roll over because they're out. Like,
yeah, they want to make the most of every game. This is if you think of how dominant they were in their region, this is the best competition they could have potentially all year, even leading into next year. If we don't find a way to do MSI correctly again next year, potentially this is the last chance for an entire 365 days that Unicorns of Love have to play against real competition. They're going to make the most out of every single part of it, I think. And just to tie it up, my pick'ems here, very similar to Al's. Top Esports to come first. Whoa, not second.
Careful.
DRX to come second. FlyQuest to come third, and Unicorns of Love to come fourth. I could quite easily see this group next week. Just double the wins, double the losses. And you've got the result for that group, because it does just seem all foregone conclusion at this point. So there you go. How you feeling about your pick'ems?
Group D looks okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of correct answers right now, but we won't know until what, Tuesday.
Do you know, I think what's really interesting about yours is that you've possibly got, so Group A, you've maybe got TL and Suning the wrong way around. Group B, you've maybe got JD and Damon the wrong way around. Group C, you've maybe got TSM and Fnatic need to be swapped, and then Group D, you've got Unicorns of Love and FlyQuest need to be swapped. So you've got like half the teams predicted correctly, right? From what I can see. Whereas you go to mine, and yeah, my Group A is the same, and yeah, I think I've pretty solidly predicted Group B and D, but Group C, it's probably just not happening that way for me. So it would be interesting to see who comes up with the more points. It's still all to play for. Group A could still go crazy. So yeah, who knows? Who knows when it comes to pick'ems? But that's gonna pretty much be it for our podcast today. Far shorter than we did last time, which is great. We wanted to try and slim it down a bit, make it more digestible. We will be back at some point next week to talk about the second round robin, how it went, and whether it lived up to our expectations from today. And we'll also be looking forward to it'll be the quarterfinals, right? Is that quarterfinals at that point?
It will be, yeah.
Yeah.
8 teams. So
top 8, yeah. So the top 8 teams, we'll find out who they are and how the draw looks for that. Any final thoughts, Sal?
The only thing I want to mention is the sad news about the Oceanic League.
Yes, of course. We did want to just touch on this briefly. So yeah, take it away.
I mean, it is horrible, really, because we saw teams, we saw Legacy play at Plains less than a month ago, and now the realization that this team isn't going to be competing next year it must be really surreal for those players and all the staff involved in the Oceanic League Legends, in the OCE. So I guess commiserations, really. It's not great. I hope that everyone finds a footing, hopefully can find their way back into esports in some manner, some way, shape or form. I have heard that the like offset to that is that Oceanic players no longer are an import slot in NA. So
yes, that's correct.
We may see some Oceanic talent come to NA, which will be good because again, you could say it's a more competitive environment than the Oceanic League, but it's a case of whether NA decide to pick the talent up, and they should. There's some players out there that I think deserve to.
I mean, I could name a
But yeah,
few off the top of my head that have been picked up. With them being English speakers as well, it means that synergy is much easier to find with Oceanic players, especially when you haven't necessarily got the big bucks to throw at EU stars. So FBI comes to mind. God, his name's escaped my brain. Ryoma for 100 Thieves was an Oceanic pickup. Um, there's another one who came over with FBI, I believe, similar time. Brain's gone dead. But there are a few Oceanic players playing in NA right now, and it will be to the benefit of the org that they don't take up an import slot. Also, kind of risky in that if they don't take up an import slot, someone else's job might be at risk. So if you're
well,
a Golden Guardians right now, you got FBI. He no longer takes up an import slot. You're like, right, finally get that Korean top laner that I always wanted.
that's the problem with NA right now. But I'm hoping it'll spare on some more competition, but not unhealthy competition.
Hmm.
Also, someone sign Reyes, please. From
Yeah,
Legacy,
yeah,
someone get Reyes.
he's good. He's good. Um, Immaculate Draven player. Um, yeah, absolutely. Very, very sad news. There are going to be competitions continuing in the Oceanic region, and Oceania will have teams to send to international competition. I believe they will still have slots for them at MSI and Worlds going forward. So if these orgs do decide, because it is the league that's disbanding, not the orgs. So if these orgs do decide to continue in some capacity, even if it's in a limited capacity, only probably playing for a lower tournament prize pool in their region, then they will still be able to. There will still be a way for them to qualify into international competition. So we will still get to see these players.
Good. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
absolutely. And yeah, I think that about wraps it up. So thank you for joining me tonight, Al.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We will be. I will get this edited and put together as soon as possible for YouTube consumption. If anyone would like it anywhere else, I haven't looked into it just yet, but it will be possible for us to put an audio-only podcast out. I believe it's quite easy to get it on certain places like Apple Podcasts, like Stitcher. So if anyone would like it there, please make sure to comment on the YouTube video so that we know that people want it there. You can listen to us at the gym. You can listen to us while you do your laundry. Yeah, this is where I listen to my podcast, by the way.
You can listen to us while you're playing League.
Listen to us while you're playing League. Listen to us on the bus. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect companion. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Peace out.